since I don't have a gavel.
I can get you one.
Okay. Good evening. I believe that it is now 6 o'clock. I'm going to call the meeting to order. We never established that we would do a roll call, but for purposes of this meeting, I will just look around the room and note for the record that we do have a quorum. Maybe when we write our rules and procedures, maybe you might want the chair to actually do a formal roll call. Some people like to do that. First of all, I would ask all the members to take a look at tonight's agenda. And are there any additions, corrections? If not, I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
Is there a second?
I second.
It's been properly moved and second that the agenda as printed be approved. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All against, say no. The ayes have it. The minutes of the last meeting were sent to you via email from the clerk's office at my request. I hope that everybody had a chance to review the minutes. I will entertain a motion to either correct, amend, or approve the minutes.
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Okay, it's been properly moved and second that we approve the minutes. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, the minutes are approved. Moving down the agenda, our next item is new business, introduction of our temporary staff attorney. I'm going to take the liberty to tell you what I know about our temporary staff attorney, because I do happen to know her professionally, and then I will ask her to introduce herself in her own way, if that's okay with the group. Our staff attorney found by our procurement department here at the city is Miss Susan Moore. Miss Susan Moore is recently retired from her job as general counsel of GMA. And in her capacity as general counsel of GMA, I have been at many professional conferences for local government attorneys and CLE seminars for local government attorneys, and in that capacity, over many, many years, I have known Ms. Moore. So with that, Susan, if you would introduce yourself and tell the group just a little bit about your background.
Sure. As Obi mentioned, I do know her from being in professional circles. There's a limited universe of local government lawyers in this state, and we all tend to know each other. But to tell you a little bit about myself, I'm actually originally from New Orleans, and went to Auburn University undergrad, don't throw anything, Georgetown Law School, and have been practicing in Georgia for 31 years. 25 of those years were at GMA. For 6 years I served as Associate General Counsel, and for the past 25, the past 19, I served as General Counsel, and I retired just at the beginning of May, basically so I can take care of my parents. And in my capacity at GMA, one of the things I did was oversee the Certified City of Ethics program. So I've seen a lot of ethics ordinances, and I saw the meeting of this group last week, viewed it on YouTube, and was just very impressed with the sincerity and everybody's desire to do the right thing. So Mr. Donald reached out to me, and I'm here just for this matter, hopefully, because of the unique circumstances you find yourselves in.
Okay. Members of the board, do any of you have any questions you'd like to ask Ms. Moore? Is there
Welcome.
any unreadiness for allowing Ms. Moore to advise us tonight.
Well, I know you probably was briefed as to why we wanted you here, right?
Yes, ma'am. I insisted on getting all the materials before I agreed because I really wanted to understand what your issues were. And that was very helpful. It actually is a unique circumstance. I don't know that I've seen this in all my years at GMA. I don't know that I've seen this, so it is a unique circumstance.
So, board members, what is your pleasure in terms of how we should proceed? I mean, I think I'm suggesting that we leave the training update toward the end of the meeting. Could we kind of just move right into the complaint? Would that be satisfactory? I think she is ready to proceed. So, without objection, we will ask Ms. Moore to get ready to advise us on the complaint. Just to kind of summarize where we are, I think we all know, but for those watching at home or on YouTube, we held our first meeting a week ago today, and we preliminarily reviewed ethics complaint number 2019-01. We decided as a board that we had some unreadiness as to legal interpretation of the ethics code. We requested the county manager to assist us in getting an attorney to advise us regarding our questions on this complaint, and that is why Ms. Moore is with us here tonight. I will open it up as to how do y'all want her to do a summary? Do y'all want to jump right in with questions? There's no right or wrong way to do this.
Well, I think she said she reviewed everything, just, yeah, jump
Jump right
right in.
in.
We had questions, so.
And
Okay, then.
if it's okay with the chair, I'd be happy to take questions as people have them, if that would be more helpful,
Right.
just
Okay.
to the flow. And I noticed there are several attorneys on the body. But, and again, I just want to preface what I'm saying. All of this is my opinion of what I think these statutes mean, and you are certainly free to take that or not. It's not gospel, it's not the order of a court. It has, really no more weight than anyone else's opinion. It is simply one that is backed by experience. But this is an independent body, and you are certainly free to make your own judgments. So I just want to always put that out there with the client to make sure that we're clear on who's in the driver's seat, which is y'all. I noticed 3 questions that you had. You may have others, or some of these may prompt additional questions. One was the issue of whether the board's required to hold a preliminary hearing prior to dismissing an ethics complaint. And everybody has a copy in their materials, I believe, right, of the ordinance. And I'm probably going to refer to sections, and so you may want to follow along with me. And I note that section 5007B2 states that the board shall dismiss with prejudice any complaint which is unjustified, frivolous, patently unfounded, or fails to state facts sufficient to invoke the disciplinary jurisdiction of the city council. Now, if you look at section 5007C, which is just below that, it more specifically requires a preliminary hearing within 30 days of the board's receipt of a complaint and authorizes the board to dismiss complaints and it tracks the same language, that are unjustified, frivolous, patently unfounded, or fail to state sufficient facts. So the 2 subsections address the dismissal of complaints on exactly the same grounds. However, what I would point out in this is that the provision in 5007B2, the first one, was original to the ordinance, and the more specific section in subsection C was added when a new ethics ordinance was adopted at the beginning of this year. And moreover, if you look at B2, it also directs the Board of Ethics to dismiss without prejudice complaints that don't meet the standards and to dismiss with prejudice complaints that show repetitive failure to adhere to your standards. So, looking at this, and I'm just looking really at the four corners of the document and using traditional rules of statutory construction, looking at it, the traditional rules of statutory construction ask us to read a statute in such a way as to try to make all the parts harmonize. For the lawyers in the group, we read them in paramateria. There's your lab for the day. When the provisions relate to the same thing or they have the same purpose, we try to read it all together so that it makes sense and so that we honor whatever the intent was of the council. And another rule of statutory construction is generally that the more specific provision will control over the more general one. And that makes sense when you think about it. There will be a general statement and then a more specific clarification or amendment of that. So looking at it with those two rules in mind, it seems to me that subsection C is a mandatory of B2 and that it necessitates a preliminary hearing before dismissing a complaint as non-compliant for these reasons. And the reason I say that is they track the exact same causes. If they had different bases for getting rid of something without a preliminary hearing, my opinion would be different. But because they track the exact same language, it seems to me that a preliminary hearing is generally required. To me, the more interesting question in this, in looking through the materials, was whether 50010, which is the emergency ordinance, the one with respect to complaints arising from courts, is how that applies. Because that says that complaints under that section are to be promptly dismissed and direct the board to promptly dismiss them. This was added after 5007C, so after the more specific provision, we get even a more specific provision which directs the board to dismiss complaints against actions arising from court proceedings. And it's my opinion that you don't have to have a preliminary hearing if it comes under that. And the reason for that is because it is addressed to a very specific type of complaint, and it does not track the same language that's used in the earlier statute, and it is later adopted. So those are all things that lead me to the conclusion that if something is covered by 50010, then you don't have to have a preliminary hearing. So I don't know if anybody has questions about that, but that's my analysis.
Done well, I agree with you.
Okay.
That was my understanding too.
Okay. I mean, it is sort of poking through and putting the pieces together and, you know. So the second thing that was raised, which I thought was actually a really great question, was can you split the complaint apart and treat the different pieces of it as two different charges? And looking at the four corners of the complaint, it's a little disheartening because complaint is never defined. And it is always used in sort of the singular for the most part. And so it seems to treat it as one thing. And this body doesn't have any sort of plenary power to take it apart or to do anything like that. The council didn't give this body that power. It might be a good idea for the council in the future to define complaint in the interest of efficiency. But there's only one section that addresses multiple complaints, and that's section 5007A1II, which states that a complaint may not include allegations against more than one official, and it requires a separate complaint against a separate individual. So that tells me that it wasn't intended for you to take apart complaints. I'm not sure that it occurred to the council at the time, and again, this body may want to recommend that the council address that, or the council may see this and decide to do it on their own. So it's my decision that you can't take that apart. I do think that's inefficient, and probably not necessarily an intended result, but I do think that is what the four corners of the document tell us. Now, I do think that if you wanted to break it apart, I don't think you'd be in a tremendous amount of legal danger, just to tell you that, because the two pieces of the complaint have completely different factual bases. They're not really related at all. So I think if you elected to treat them separately, I don't think you're in any legal danger. The more conservative path is to treat them as one. The third issue that came up that I heard was whether the second charge of the complaint should be dismissed pursuant to the emergency ordinance, which is now 50010. The one for actions arising from court proceedings. I think everybody seemed to be in agreement that the first one was clearly subject to that. And there is a more appropriate venue for that to be heard, for that complaint to be heard. And while the second claim comes from court proceedings, there was some concern that what it really went to was the behavior of the city attorney representing her husband before the municipal court. However, the very broad language of that provision leads me to believe that it probably does apply. In addition, given its recent adoption, in light of it was adopted the day before the complaint was filed, so its very broad language leads me to believe that it actually does apply in this instance because it does concern court proceedings. But I would also point out something else that, as I was reading through this, came to my attention. Section 5007G2, and y'all might want to turn there. It directs the board to promptly dismiss any complaint that is not filed within 6 months from the date the complainant knew or should have known of the action alleged to be a violation. And there is an email attached to the complaint in Exhibit B that shows that in June of last year, the complainant regarded this as a conflict of interest and knew that it was a problem. And so I think that 6-month provision actually is another reason, and probably a better reason, if you're not completely comfortable with the first one, to address this second one. So in conclusion, it is my opinion that the complaint can be dismissed in its entirety without the necessity of a preliminary hearing based on section 50010 of the city's code of ordinances. If for any reason the board is not comfortable with that, you can certainly hold your preliminary hearing. That's a conservative course of action, but I feel comfortable that that section of the code authorizes you to take that action. So if anybody has questions, Madam Chair.
Questions, members?
Yeah, I did have a question. I read 5007G1 and 2, and I thought, uh-oh.
Yeah.
Because I sort of looked at subsection 2 as the knew or should have known standard, which
Right.
occurs in like fraud cases. When outside of the statute of limitations,
Right.
then you only had reason to discover it outside of the statute of limitations, then it mandates that you bring it immediately within 6 months. So that sort of gave me
Came
some
at it
pause.
from a different angle.
Right, that sort of gave me some pause also. So it's clearly filed within a year,
Right.
but it is filed outside of the knew or should have known 6 months, but within a year.
Right.
So I sort of read it that way.
Right.
But I understand certainly what you're saying, because when I first read it, I'm like, okay, it's beyond 6 months when you look at the email.
Right.
Question. But knew or should have known is generally used to indicate something that was hidden, and then you had reason to find out, but you only found out after the statute of limitations. It would be, an example would be like credit card fraud. Credit card companies did something to us. We had no way of knowing until after the statute of limitations. Once you find out, you have to immediately move to bring that action. You only get 6 months at that point in time. I sort of read that way.
Yeah, and I read it as, when something happens, you may not realize that's what it was.
Right.
And then after that happens, then you may realize. So if in the first 6 months you don't realize that that's an ethics violation, you still have 6 months after you realize it, within that 1 year period, to get your complaint filed. So the council has really built in some leeway,
Right.
not expecting everyone to be a scholar on the ethics ordinance at all
Right.
times. Well, that would be nice, you know. Most people probably aren't going to read it with the attention to detail that
Right.
this body will.
Yeah, but I thought because the language knew or should have known is specifically included.
Right,
Yeah,
but newer should have known can occur before the 12 months,
Right.
you know, runs.
Right.
But, or it could have come after the 12 months, like you said, if somebody's hiding something, actively concealing something, and there was no way to know. So, you know, I think that's why it's written in the disjunctive,
Right.
but I don't know.
And I read it totally different. I read it being done within the year specifically.
Right.
That's the way I read it. And we had that conversation.
Right, and these are some things that this body may want to point out to the council and ask them for some clarity just for your future proceedings, because I think it would be a reasonably easy matter for the council to add some clarity.
Because what would be the necessity of the language you have here, other than you got 6 months from when you knew or should have?
Right.
Yeah, I think that's pretty clear.
What's that?
I mean, the language, knew or should have known. You know, if someone has gone out their way to hide something,
Mhm.
then you shouldn't have known.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
Okay.
right, you
Right.
shouldn't have known.
Right.
So I think the language is actually, you know, pretty good, you know.
Mhm.
If somebody actively deceives, you know, the public or officials,
Right.
and you can't find out because they deceived it, even though
Right.
the incident has happened a year ago.
Beyond a year.
But
Right.
once it comes to light, let's say there's a newspaper investigation,
Mhm.
then you know, then a complaint can be filed. So I think the language is pretty
So
good.
why wouldn't the language just say you got 6 months from once you know?
I don't know, I didn't draft it.
Why we?
Well,
But
it,
you're going beyond
well,
a
it
year.
does say that.
If you take that premise, then you're going beyond a year. I mean, I may not have found out till 18 months later. So at least just having that
Right,
first
that
year.
allows you to expand beyond the
Yeah.
year of when it occurred.
Right.
In this instance, I don't think you have to worry about
No.
that. I think you have evidence of new or known. But
Oh yeah, we have evidence of knowing it. Yeah, well, right, well out of time, no question. Okay.
so,
Any other
Right.
questions?
Well, I'd like to thank you for the clarity and breaking the different sections down, and especially pointing out section 2 of the G of the 5007. I think that's very helpful.
Any other-
Back to the first thing you said,
mhm.
you said the first claim, there's definitely another form, and it definitely, just wanted to nail that down. That's exactly what you were saying, there's definitely another form.
There's definitely another forum. I mean, the attorney can actually bring a mandamus action. There's a lot of different things that can be done to remedy that. The ethics body isn't really the appropriate forum for that. And the council may want to clarify some of that going forward, that where there's another body. I think they really did it with the first, with 50010. They, with a broad brush, they went there on that and said, we don't think this belongs here. But, you know, also, if somebody had a state bar complaint, it would be more appropriate for that to go to that body as a bar complaint. Or if someone had some other professional licensing, you know, for it to go there. Certainly, and the intent is to have, with this body, an inexpensive, quick way to have these kinds of claims adjudicated. But The first one really does need to be before a judge.
Is there a motion
For,
on the complaint?
oh, if we're there, yeah.
Well, everybody answered all their questions answered?
What was this ordinance?
Well, I thought that's what we were doing, but I'll try to.
Or just answer this question.
Okay, so the actual complaint is now before us. Does that make it more clear? I thought we were already.
Oh, okay, yeah.
The actual complaint is now before us. Nobody else had any questions or?
I did.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to cut
The ordinance that
off.
we're dealing with, 2018-052, when did it go into effect?
I'm sorry.
When did it go into effect?
It was passed by the council, I believe, on January 8, 2019.
Yes.
So it only went into effect this year?
Yes.
There was a previous ordinance. There was an ordinance in
Correct.
existence in 2017. and
Okay,
there were some
it covered
changes-
basically the same.
There were some changes.
There were changes to the
Yeah.
construction of the whole council,
Okay,
the whole ethics. board.
Well, the original ethics board had 3 members.
okay.
So there were quite a few changes that they made with this one. This one is much more comprehensive, quite honestly.
Any other unreadiness, questions, concerns? And I will again, the complaint is before us. Is there a motion?
Well, I'll make the motion, and I anticipate conversation, but I'll make the motion based upon the advisement and clarity given by Attorney Moore that the complaint be dismissed
In its entirety.
in its entirety.
Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Discussion?
I'm just gonna make this statement, because I don't know how you guys feel about it, but that motion states that we're making a decision based on her advice.
Mhm.
Is that cool to term it that way? Because I thought it's supposed to come from the board or just advice from her, and we still make an independent decision.
I'm making the motion because I agree with it.
No, that's not what I'm asking. That's not what I'm asking.
Oh, yeah, if I didn't agree with it, I'm,
Has not
and I
That's
can,
not
I
what
can
I'm asking.
reword the motion if you want to. I hear what you're saying.
She kind of like gave it, you know, it's a good motion.
Restate it.
It's a good motion. It's a good motion. I just
You
want-
all right with it? You all right?
Yeah, but that's his motion.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
It's
my-
a good
Yeah,
motion.
you can make the
Yeah.
motion.
Right,
yeah,
right.
Yeah, that's fine.
And I hear you, but my motion, I can assure you, is because I recognize, I've been in courts my whole career. The thing is, I recognize that she's giving her advice. And as an independent body, we don't have to take her advice. That's the truth of it. I mean, so, I happen to agree after reading the ordinances and the amendments and the actual complaint, even after reading it again many times after our first meeting. I just simply don't think that there's a complaint here. I think that there may be some issues here that should be handled in a supervision type of supervisory type of role, based upon behaviors and so forth and so on. But I don't think it's an ethics complaint. So that's why I'm making the motion.
So there's a motion and a second we're discussing. Any other discussion?
Yes.
Mr.
Thanks.
Francis?
My position, the last time we were here, is I think section 50010 covers the first complaint, the first issue in the complaint. I see it like an indictment, and each charge stands on its own. So your advice was great, I respect the advice, but remember what underlying her advice was, we're free to do what we want to do. Right, we're free to do what we want. So I think clearly, I mean, I thought that the first part of the complaint is not an ethics violation anyway, regardless of section 50010. It's not an ethics violation. I think clearly part two of the complaint is an ethics violation. It says specifically, no city official shall act as an agent or attorney for another in any matter before the city council or any other city body. Magistrate court is a city body. I don't think that the language of arising from court proceedings relates to that issue. It doesn't matter who brings that ethical violation. What matters is whether they have stated an ethical violation. So that's my opinion. I think that I would make a motion that we sever out the complaint. You dismiss the first part promptly as not satisfying the mandates of what a complaint is, but that we proceed on the second matter, and then we would have to have a preliminary hearing on that matter.
So Mr. Francis is making a substitute motion.
Right.
A substitute motion.
Right.
Is there a second?
I thought we were still in conversation. We're still talking about the first one,
Yes.
because we're gonna have to vote on that first one.
On the first motion?
Yes,
Okay, that's fine.
Robert's rule.
That's fine.
Because that's not a friendly amendment.
No, a substitute motion takes precedent over the original motion.
No, but it can't dismiss my motion. His substitute motion doesn't dismiss, according to Robert Rules Board, it doesn't dismiss my motion. The thing is that what has to happen is that because it's not a friendly amendment to my motion, is that we vote on that motion.
Vote on your
Or
motion first.
I withdraw it, and I'm not withdrawing my motion.
That's Robert's rule of order, that's the way it goes down.
Okay, well, maybe we might want to take a peek at Robert's Rules of Order, maybe.
That's the way it goes down.
Well, are we still with the discussion on the motion? Or
Well,
we
yeah.
away from the discussion?
Yeah,
Still on the
that's
discussion,
another
you
thing.
move
I
on.
wasn't sure why we cut off the conversation. I thought we was
Yeah,
having a
because
conversation.
I was waiting for him to finish, so
Right.
I could.
Yeah, I
chime
wanted
in
to
with
comment
my
on his
discussion.
comments.
I believe Ms. Pope here want to discuss as well.
You have Robert's rule of order, you have a
There's
motion.
no such thing as a substitute motion.
Right.
There's no
It's
such
an amendment, he
thing.
can only amend the motion if he accepted.
Okay, this is why we need to be trained.
He said on the motion.
You gotta let her, I think your chair is looking at.
Yeah.
But how do we get there before the
Okay,
discussion is
it
over?
might take me a minute to find it.
Excellent point.
You want
You know, you're not even finished.
Still on the discussion, right?
Okay,
All right.
Mr. Francis.
Yes.
Would you do this for me while I get that code section of the substitute motion? Would you allow the rest of the discussion to move forward
Yes.
on the original motion
Yes.
before you actually make your motion?
Yes.
Okay, because I believe that my ruling
Well, I'll get ready for
is
it.
has the site. I mean, he's probably run into this situation recently. I believe that I may have confused the body by saying that there was a motion on the floor and we were having discussion. I did not realize that people thought that there was no such thing as a substitute motion, so let me be true to my word, please, and finish the discussion on Mr. Joe's motion. Would you do that for me?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, discussion on Mr. Joe's motion.
Okay. What I wanted to say was one of the reasons why I accepted and seconded Mr. Joe's motion was because if you remember in the last meeting we had, I believe I was the only one that voted that we didn't need to do any other legal person to come in because we had plenty of people here. And I sort of felt like it was like a waste of time and money because basically everything she has given to us is pretty much what I've been saying in the last meeting. That I really believe, based on the things that I've read and understood, and I know I'm not an attorney, but I can read with comprehension. And my understanding is it should be dismissed. It is not an ethics complaint. The whole thing should be dismissed. And that's the reason why that I'm saying what I'm saying based on what Attorney Moore has said here and based on his motion. And that's the reason I say. Mr. Judge.
Yeah, I think Mr. Francis brought up some good points. I think, however, in that discussion, what has been forgotten is what Attorney Moore has said about 5007, Section G.2. And that is that second part is invalidated because it did not meet the 6-month time frame. So even if we, for some reason, didn't want to dismiss it, which she advised that based upon even both pieces have to do with court, and we would be in, based upon what's written, our prerogative to dismiss. What's even, what she stated was, what's even a stronger piece is 5007 G.2, and that is any complaint that is not filed within 6 months, which invalidates that second part, even if we didn't want to take her advice for the first part, that it was all court related. So I would say that because of that, you know, there is no reason to move forward with either part.
That's sort of, and I don't necessarily disagree with that, but that's sort of adding to, you're sort of amending your own motion.
I'm having a conversation right now.
Okay, right. But I'm saying,
and my
right.
motion was just to dismiss. I didn't give a
Okay.
grounds of why the dismissal. I didn't say because
Right.
of the, right,
Yeah.
okay.
Because that when I read that today, and I was like, okay, that's another complication, because then it would have to be dismissed
Right.
under that. But I don't think we can dismiss it. My position is we don't dismiss it under the emergency provision if we decide to bifurcate it. We don't dismiss that under the emergency provision, but that does raise a separate issue right there.
And I don't have a problem with that.
Right.
If we want to say why we're dismissing both parts and the reason why, and there are different reasons, I don't have a problem with that. I was just making a motion that,
Right.
based upon what I understand, and I'm glad we got to the G.2, is that I think both of them, that the one motion should be dismissed, and we can give multiple reasons based on the ordinance why it should be dismissed.
So, Mr. Francis, you're saying that they both can't be, the reason why you don't want to dismiss is because they can't be dismissed under the one ordinance? Or,
Well, I'm speaking about the second complaint.
okay, but I
Okay.
was just going back to a sentence that you just said.
First I was talking about, let me see if I understand correctly. First I was talking about, I don't think we should dismiss under 50010, the emergency motion,
Correct.
the emergency ordinance. Okay. Secondly, no, I was saying I understand that he makes a valid argument. I
Okay,
mean, I personally think that it's a year, and I think the second part under G modifies if you find out after the statute of limitations, then you have 6 months to bring it. It's almost like we give you a separate statute of limitations under which to bring a complaint. It's almost like in civil actions and fraud cases, you don't discover it until after the statute of limitations is up. Then you have a certain amount of time to bring it. It's confusing. So,
Okay.
You still confused.
But you
yourself.
had,
You
the
confused.
statement you
no,
made,
I understand.
one of the
Yeah.
things you said was that she violated a specific code as far as representing, someone in
Right,
front of the body.
and the person knew about it.
That's the ethical complaint that you're
Right.
talking about, that we
Right.
can't dismiss.
That was my argument.
Exactly, okay.
Right.
I just want to be
That's
sure I
right.
understood.
Right, but the time limitations, it makes it, without more, it makes it an issue that we have to discuss. Because do you find out on January 1, then you file your complaint December 31? Well, that's still within a year. This allows you to file it within a year.
So basically what you're saying is that we should not adhere to what Attorney Moore has said on that particular issue.
No.
You're taking it out of context.
Well, I think the ordinance is being taken out. The person, we know the court date.
Right.
So you knew that's the date of the actual,
Right.
You knew.
supposed ethics
Exactly.
violation.
Right.
So, I think that anything beyond that is,
So what you're saying is, whenever you only have 6 months to bring an ethics complaint.
6
Basically what you're
months
saying.
when you should have,
When you knew or should have.
that's it.
Right, you have 6 months.
That's it. So you knew on that court date. If you went to sleep for 6 months and woke up and said, wait a minute, that court hearing that I attended 6 months ago, I think that was an ethics violation.
Mhm.
That's not the way,
Right.
I don't think that's the spirit of the ordinance.
I'm not saying,
Right.
right, I'm not necessarily saying it way, I said earlier, I said it makes it for more, for more issues that we have to navigate through.
Well, I think that's an issue for if the council wants to tighten up the
Right.
language in the ordinance.
Right.
But I think for the sake of the decision-making that we have to do concerning this complaint, that it's pretty clear that it's 6 months from the date of the supposed ethics violation, and that the date in which you knew, which is the court date.
So what's the purpose of the because the way you said it.
Right,
You got 6
yeah.
months.
Right.
Correct.
6 months, what's the
Well,
purpose of saying 1 year?
It says, any
Right.
complaint which is filed later than 1 year after a violation of this
Right.
chapter is alleged to have been incurred, you can dismiss. Any complaint that is not filed within 6 months from the date the complainant knew or should have known of the action alleged to be a violation.
I think that, and again,
You got 6 months.
this is, you have 6 months from when you should have known.
Okay.
But let's say.
But it also
you-
gives you a year
It gives you a year.
from the date that it
It
happened.
gives you a year from the date that it happened if you shouldn't have known. Meaning, if somebody.
Don't say
No, well, I'm just talking about the spirit of it. And the thing is, it's not written in a way in which is absolute. Neither is most statutes that are written. But the thing is, I think that it's saying that, let's say it happened 2 years ago,
Mhm.
that you don't get to file a complaint, an ethics complaint, on an issue that's that old. And so I think the year in there, from what I read, it's saying that no complaint, regardless if you should have known, did not know, may have known, can be filed after 1 year of the actual incident. That's the way I read it.
Tell me, because I'm kind of like going
Mr.
this way.
Bennett?
Judge Sellers understood, based on the email that she sent, that a violation occurred over a year ago. So, in my mind, agreeing with Joe, I'm gonna sway back his way, is the fact that she did know. It wasn't like, we're not discussing whether she knew or didn't know. We knew she knew back in June when she even sent the attorney an email asking her to step down and let somebody else move in. That would have been the time to put in an ethics complaint. So the question is, 6 months, a year later, why now? What happened? Did she not satisfy what you asked her to do? And are you, I don't have to get off into all that. I'm just speaking of the date. She sent this email last June, pointing out an ethics issue. So why are we here a year later, just getting the complaint? That's where I'm stuck.
I agree 100%. In the email, it indicates that she felt a certain way about, which indicates that she thought she knew that, or felt that there was an issue.
She asked her to step down.
Any other discussion on Mr. Joe's motion? I don't know whether, at some point you might want an opinion from the city attorney or whatever, but let me just say, state in my place that it is permissible to make a substitute motion while the main motion is pending. It doesn't have to be a friendly amendment, it can be the opposite motion. I've been the parliamentarian for many bodies, and that's just a fact. But I'm just trying to see if we can get to consensus before we get bogged down in any parliamentary procedures. But if we gotta do the substitute motion, if he wants to make his motion, and if it gets a second, then y'all vote on his motion, up or down.
You gotta close out my motion. The thing is, and I am currently chair on many boards, and I'll tell you now that you cannot proceed with a motion that's already on the table. Now, my motion can be voted down, voted up, but it can't just be hijacked. Otherwise, if that's the case with Robert Rules of Order, then guess what? We'll never get to any decision because I'll just make another motion on top of his motion. I mean, the thing
Well,
is,
you'll get to a decision because people will vote one way or the other. One of you will have the votes, but a
But we
substitute
never
is
get-
just, listen, a substitute is just a form and amendment. You would not say that your motion cannot be amended, would you? I
no.
mean, if somebody wanted to amend your motion,
But I brought that up, and
I mean,
it's
but
not
a
a friendly
substitute-
amendment. It's not an amendment. He didn't ask for an amendment.
it's just a form of an amendment. It's just
I thought
another
you asked
name
for a
for
motion.
it. But he,
Yes, on motion.
Madam Chair, may I ask the attorney a question?
Yes.
What is your opinion of, sorry, I had a line 411 through 417, that's the 507. What is the latest time that you followed?
where are you, Mr.?
I believe it was section 5007G.
Yeah.
I just want to know what your opinion is. There is a conflict.
Yeah. In my opinion, they each stands on their own. So 6 months from when you knew or should have known, if somebody goes past that, then you can dismiss. If somebody goes past a year, and I do think it's intended to avoid stale claims that don't come up for 3 years. I think that's the intent, is to avoid stale claims or having somebody bring something up 3 years from now. Remember, this is an ethics body, it's not a criminal court. You know, it's intended to correct behavior and bring things out to light so that the public can have input and the public can know what's going on. And so if it's not done in a timely fashion, maybe it goes in a different form. But that's how I read it. I read them, you know, any complaint, you know, and I think they all stand, each subsection stands on its own. But that's how I would read it.
I would say if we vote any other way, well, no, I ain't gonna say that. We would, well, based on what we discussed here, if we vote any other way besides dismissing, we'll be in the wrong because this complaint is over a year old. And she knew from the date that she wrote that email that an ethics issue was at hand, and she never followed through. So a year later, so even though the date arguments are valid,
Right.
still her dates throw her way beyond the date issue.
Right, no, I wanted us to have discussion on it because these issues, we're just gonna help the city out as time goes on. Because they can refer back to this, we've had these discussions. I would say we can definitely dismiss on 2 bases on the first part of the complaint, but I would say we vote to sever out the complaint because otherwise, some concerned citizens may lose out on. I mean, so let's say another citizen brings a complaint and we summarily dismiss one part of the complaint, but they got 10 other ethics violations. But because they didn't promptly bring this, because one, we dismiss all the others. So I think we set a precedent here if we don't sever out, even if we sever out and dismiss, which is what I'm coming to. So I think we sever out. My motion would be, if I could make a motion, we'll work all that out. We can vote on Mr. Joe's motion first. It would be that this body decides to sever out complaints so that we don't handicap any citizens coming forward in the future. And that we dismiss the first part of the complaint on 2 grounds. That it doesn't fit under the emergency ordinance, and it's not an ethics violation based on what we had before us before we had the emergency violation. And on the second grounds, that it was not timely. It was not timely brought before this body. So that's my position.
But that was my question last week. Do we even have the power?
We're not prohibited from doing it.
According to Mr. Moore,
We're not
we probably
prohibited.
do not possess that.
We don't need to do that.
And my second question is, you said you worry about setting a precedent, but the rules are here for a reason. I mean, how much more time do you want to give people? People will figure out, just like the law, like a personal injury case or any other thing, people will figure that out. Because if they're really involved and they're people in city Southwest, and I'm not in everybody's minds, but you have to have something in place. You have to say 6 months or a year. You have to go by these, because if not, someone can come back and say, well, you didn't do that for this case. You should do this for my case. You understand what I'm saying? Because the rule is here.
You speaking about the time?
The time.
Oh yeah, I think it's beyond the time. My motion would be to dismiss, but my motion would first be to treat the complaint in separate parts.
Are you saying you want as part of the motion that the second part of the complaint is untimely?
Right.
So you could amend his motion. His motion is to dismiss in its entirety based on the new ordinance.
Right.
That was my motion, Chair.
Well, I'm just seeing how he might amend. He wants the timeliness in your motion if possible.
So now you want the second part, you're okay with it being dismissed?
Right, based on that.
Okay.
No question. Right. No, I think
Okay.
what I was saying was that I would move that we as a body, which our attorney indicated that we're not prohibited from treating complaints separately based on their own individual charges. Because
That's not what she said, Ms. Francis. What she said is that she does not think that we have the authority, that authority was not given to us to separate complaints. And the way that this complaint was given to us, it was given to us in one single complaint. What she said is that she doesn't think that we would get in that much trouble if we did.
I'm not sure if that's different from saying we're not prohibited.
No, well,
are we prohibited from doing that?
Or,
I simply think you lack the authority.
that's
I think it's simply missing.
right.
what you could say, if somebody makes the motion as it relates to the complaint filed on June 12th, 2019, Section A, because they haven't broken down Section A and B.
Right.
Section A, we dismiss it based on this. Section B, we dismiss it based on that.
Right.
And that's why I made the motion the way I made it, is because I didn't want to get into the actual reasons that we were going to dismiss the claim, that was going to be something that we talked about and put in our report. I didn't say that we was dismissing because I knew that this would come up. Because of
okay.
I never
You were
gave
just
a
saying
reason.
dismiss.
I said dismiss.
Mm-hmm.
That was my motion. That's
Just
it.
to say we have to give a reason.
I kind of think I think we need to have this vote to dismiss, but I think that I would bring that back up moving forward. We may want to consider that. Either they have to bring in 5 or 6 different complaints,
Right.
or either we're going to
You gotta-
allow them to do that so we,
Right.
whichever way this body would accept it. But we need to deal with that.
Okay, procedurally, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Am I hearing a substitute motion or an amendment? Because if not, I'm going to call the question. Okay, call the question. Let's vote on the motion. let me, everybody in for of calling the question, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, nays? Okay, that's unanimous. Okay, it's been moved properly second. Mr. Joe's motion, you heard it. We're ready to vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? It's unanimous. The complaint is dismissed. All right, moving on down the agenda. We're going to have a little bit of discussion on training. As far as I know, we don't have any other pending complaints. So your chair is hopeful that while we have this quote-unquote downtime, that maybe the manager's office could find somebody who could come and train us. And we could find time in our schedules to do that. I think at the last meeting, we did all agree that we wanted to be trained. May I ask the city manager, have you already undertaken anything on that you would like to report to us, or not?
Well, this was the priority to make sure, I know you requested legal counsel, so we started that and kind of pushed a quick emergency procurement, but we have started the scope of work, and our purchasing manager is moving forward on that. I think the one thing that you will be missing is the time frame in which you would want to be trained, because that will impact who we deliver it. So we often use GMA because we can go directly to them, but again, even that depends on the body's availability.
Do you think we could do something within 30 days? I know it's summer, holidays, vacation. I'm just throwing 30 days out there. This is totally up to us. Excuse me?
I said, I think July.
July is bad. Okay. Is August bad? Or y'all want to take the summer off? September?
Late August or early September.
Since we don't have any complaints, I think later would be better. For us, because this is the summer, people are vacationing and doing other things. And we don't have any real complaints, so.
So I'm hearing early September, after Labor Day?
Can we do it on the weekend? I'm gonna drive 2 hours. Yeah, I'm gonna do it. Bless you, bless you. You know, thank y'all.
Okay.
When we first have Saturday or something?
Weekend, maybe, okay. All right, well, I'll work with the manager's office to try to see who is available, who might be able to do it, and then we'll check availability with each of you to see who's available when in September. Okay. All right, we are down to public comment. Is there anybody from the public who would like to make a comment? Yes, sir. Would you come to the podium, state your name, and do y'all require address? Do y'all require public comment that they tell their address?
Yes, name and address.
Okay.
My name is Reggie Tatum. I live at 4930 Malcolm Drive. I live in District 1. I'm here because I want to thank you all for your willingness to serve on this board. I'm one of the ones that fought very hard, along with many others, for South Fulton to become its own city. And I'm expecting the best from the city of South Fulton. And I had the opportunity to watch you all board meeting on YouTube last week. And Ms. Brantley made a suggestion about training. And I thought that was the perfect thing. I thought the training would have happened before the meeting, but that's okay, we're on the way. Many of these complaints are made by constituents, disgruntled employees, and public officials. I ask this board, whatever decision you all make them based on facts and the rules of the law, and not the people that appointed you to this board, not the thoughts of the people that appointed you to this board, because that can be very persuasive, because I've got a lot of experience when it comes to working with public officials in government as well. And I know you all going to do us a good job, and just remember, make your decision based on the facts. And thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tatum. Anybody else from the public? Is there anything?
Come on, y'all.
Okay.
I really didn't plan to say anything, but Corey gave me that look. You know, that's my boss. And Miss Arroyo. Yeah. My name is Marie Robinson Metz, and I represent District 55. You know, that's the district that Tyrone had. Right. And it's a large district, trust me. It starts in Buckhead, South Buckhead. It takes in a lot of Atlanta, especially what? District, what, 11, 10, you name it, and it extends all the way out here to South Fulton. My District 55 overlaps with District 1 here. So what I'm basically doing is going around meeting individuals. Well, it started with 35,000, and right now, Corey, is up to 55,000 and still counting. So y'all need to pray for me. Pray for me. They do it every morning on our prayer line. Big Bethel AME Church, we have a prayer line. And we started off Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and people started complaining, said that's not enough. We need this to get us started in the morning. And I'm on there all the time, all of the time. And the last time we were on, that was, well, this was really some time ago. Commissioner Darnell, you probably heard of the young man where this guy went over and actually almost beat his brain out. Michael Jeter, you remember that? About 2-3 years ago in the West End. You remember Michael? Commissioner Darnell went with me to see Michael. I'm just giving you one example of what prayer does. And I know a lot of you already know that. I'm preaching to the choir. And we went to see Michael. I don't know if you knew that story, but Michael was so dependable. And he was supposed to have, what, dinner with his brothers, right? And he didn't show up. And they got concerned because they said, that's not like Michael. And when he went there, Michael, the doctor said if he had gotten here 10 minutes late, Michael would have drowned in what? His own blood. Just bear with me, I'm just about finished. I didn't want to come up here, so I'm up here. And I'm going to take advantage of it. In fact, a lot of people say, you're just like Emma Darnell. I said, well, she was my mentor. But we prayed, and guess what? Michael was on the prayer line this past Saturday, thanking everybody for the prayers and everything. The prayers of the righteous, no, it's not. But anyway, I won't talk long, and I have my card if anybody needs it. You know, feel free to call me. Just like I said, it's 55,000. I'm doing the best that I can. And the people out here in South Fulton are complaining because they say they haven't seen me. And I said, yeah, they are complaining. Oh yeah, I know. But I said that what I'm trying to do, you know, I've just been down there, 3 legislative sessions. And, you know, trying to get accustomed to the new environment. And that's no excuse. But I do have the list now, and it took me some time just to get the list for everybody. So I finally have the list. I have the map in my office. And as of tomorrow, I will be hiring, I've gotten permission to hire a legislative aide to work with me this summer. That's unusual because most people are out, you know, on vacation and enjoying life. But as of tomorrow, I will have someone with me who will be working with me because I can't make all of the meetings. I need someone to help. And $17,000 a year divided by 12. Well, as they said, you knew that. Hey, they said you knew that before you got here. I said I did. But I said I was minding my own business in retirement. They came and they got me. They came and asked me to run. They said, if anybody who could represent District 55, Marie Metz, you can. You've been in the area, you and your wife oops, wow. I know I need to go home and go to bed. Oh my God, excuse me. You and your husband have provided jobs for people in the community for over 35 years. A lot of people don't know that about you, okay? But as I said, if you could sort of help me, and maybe I can get you to be a part of my team. I'd love to get some of the individuals who have really been complaining. And you have a right to complain, okay? So maybe after the meeting, we can get together and we can move it, okay? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public? Okay. I would like to, it's a matter of personal privilege here. I would like to thank Ms. Moore on behalf of the board for dropping her life, whatever she had planned before she heard of the City of South Fulton Ethics Board, and coming to us well prepared with concise legal advice that we could all understand. So we are very grateful. And I want to thank my colleagues on the board. This is a great board. I've worked with thousands of people in my career, and I am really loving the way we all respect each other's opinion, that we all listen to each other, and then we vote our conscience. So I'm very proud to be your chair. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'd like to make the motion that we adjourn.
Before we adjourn, can I say one?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I just saw something, and I looked at this before, but and when you said something today, when you look at the 5007 3, the reason why the complaint is like that, it says the specific subsections under the chapter for which the accused is alleged to have violated. So for each subsection they violated, that's why they did the complaint like that, I guess.
What do you mean, why they set it out separately?
Correct. Instead of filing subsequent complaints.
So you think we should, as a body, we should analyze each section?
The way we did it, analyze each section.
Each section, right.
Yeah, and then that's probably why they didn't require them to file.
Right, but I'm not sure
complaints.
if we decided as a body that we're gonna handle every complaint that way.
Okay, well, we need to.
I thought you were
We will,
Yes.
maybe during our training
Right,
and
yeah.
in future meetings, we will talk about things we need to clarify, or at least maybe we can reach agreement in our rules about how we interpret the code.
I agree with that. Let's have training, and then let's try to figure out some rules and some
Right.
policies and procedures. That's what you said initially when we met last week, so I agree with that.
Thank you.
I agree with that 100%, that, once we get our
Yeah.
operating procedures for this committee, that will help as well. But I think that it wouldn't be a bad idea for us to forward to the council any concerns or opinions that we have concerning the ordinance, and as far as making it a little bit more clear in certain sections. I think that that's totally fair, because I'm definitely going to say something to my council person, but I think it would be more effective if we just said one thing because I think that I think that we did an excellent job considering. I think we did an excellent job, but I think that some of the confusion just has to do with language that's in the ordinance.
Well, after we get ourselves trained, our next order of business will be rules and regulations governing this body, and hopefully we won't have any other complaints in between. And along with that, maybe in the same sessions, we can come up with suggested changes / clarifications in the ordinance. So we'll call it a work session, and maybe training is half of it, and clarifications is half of it, and as I've sat here and thought about him, maybe we'll look at a Saturday morning. Anybody gonna kill me when I say Saturday morning? Anyway, we'll see. I have until September to sweet talk you into that. So, anyway, so we were in the middle of a motion to adjourn.
Yeah.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you so much.